today we are gonna make cinnamon buns, but we're not gonna make any cinnamon buns. We're gonna make cinnamon buns using Danish dough. What's really amazing about Danish dough is that it is a laminated dough, so that's gonna be very similar to a croissant dough or a puff pastry dough. So to get started for my Danish dough is I'm gonna cream 30 grams of butter, 40 grams of white sugar. I'm gonna add 5 grams of salt. And the recipes normally call for cardamom or mace. Cardamom is an amazing spice that comes in a little pod. Mace is the orange outside of a nutmeg, so I'm just gonna use a little bit of fresh nutmeg. So that's more than we need, so I'll get this in my mixer. Such a small amount, I'm not expecting the best creaming job, but I think it'll be just fine. All right, now that that's all added, I'm going to add 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk, and I'll also add some warm milk. It's about 100 grams of warm milk. I'm going to slowly add my warm milk. So next, I'm gonna add my flour portion, and what makes Danish dough really great is there's a little bit of cake flour in it. Anytime we use cake flour, we need to sift it. So this has 200 grams of bread flour, 50 grams of cake flour, and about 12 grams of instant yeast. And I'm gonna put about 2/3 in. We're gonna start little by little. So I'm gonna start with about 1/3, get it to be a bit of a sloppy mix, then I'll add another third, and then I'll pull it out of the mixer and I'll actually knead it by hand. Another third. What I'm looking for in texture is that it is just about the texture of a really good choux paste. And then from there I'll take it and I'll hand knead it with the rest of my flour. So it looks like it's the right texture. I just want it better mixed in. Awesome, looks great. So I'm gonna take this off and I'll start kneading. So I'm gonna mound my flour out. So this is the remainder of my flour, bread flour and cake flour. And I'm gonna put this sloppy mess on top of it. This is gonna be a much messier dough to handle, but that's okay. All we're doing so far is just making the dough pack. I'm gonna start with the bench scraper and start bringing it into itself. I am gonna get really messy with this. I'm just gonna avoid it for as long as I can. So before I start kneading, I'm just trying to incorporate the flour into the dough as much as I can. All right. So it's still sticky, but my bench scraper isn't really doing much for me anymore, so I should use my hands. Delicate cake flour in there. There's not too much I can expect as far as gluten development. So one of the best things that can help with this is to let it rest. I'm going to put it in saran wrap, force it into a square shape. I'm going to let it rest for 20 minutes. When I come back, I'm going to add some butter to it, and I'll show you how. That's how I'm going to laminate it. I'm going to add butter, and it's going to create all these amazing layers. It's going to be lovely flaky bread dough that is going to make amazing cinnamon buns. Nice little rectangle. The reason why I would wrap it in the shape in a rectangle is because at the end I want to roll it into a rectangle. So I'm going to make my life easy by already shaping it in my end result. My dough pack for my Danish has rested, and now I'm going to roll it out and get my first pile of butter in there. Now remember, there's cake flour in here, so the dough pack itself is going to be a lot softer than it would be for for a croissant dough. So get ready to use a lot of flour. Very, very generously sprinkle bench flour over my counter. I'm gonna make sure there's flour all over this guy because I don't want to fight with this. Although I feel like I'm gonna fight with it no matter what. You'll notice my dough pack's a little dark, and it's probably darker than yours. It's because the bread flour I use at home is a 60-40 whole wheat split. So I'm gonna roll this into a rectangle. The best way to roll is to always start from the middle and work your way out. If you want to keep it a rectangle, move it in 2 directions the whole time. If you want a circle, move it in all directions, but always make sure you're moving it. It is in the nature of dough to spring back to shape. So anticipate it and you won't feel surprised at any time. Okay, I'm gonna do one more long one and I think I'm good here. All right, so it's movable. I'm letting it relax. I'm gonna brush off any excess flour. Let me go slightly longer. I'm gonna take 125 grams of room temperature butter. I'm just gonna stir it up first because I don't want to fight with it, and we all know this is very soft dough. I'm gonna put it on 2/3, so I'm just gonna guesstimate what that looks like. That looks like about right here. So I like to, all right, what did I say? About right here, put a little seam right there so I can follow it. So I'm putting the butter on this side, but not on this side. You wanna work with whole butter and not melted butter. So you want all of it mixed together. Those are the properties you want. But when this butter melts between all the layers you create, it's going to create steam, and that steam is going to be part of all of those beautiful layers in a Danish. Often people will soften their butter in the mixer, like they would just cream it up. I'm all for it. I'm very honestly way too lazy. So a quick little stir is good enough for me. Make sure I measure it early so it's not cold from the fridge. Worst comes to worst, I've even put it on with my hands, using the heat of my hands to help soften it. I am industrious in the way where you can tell my motivations are lazy motivations. All right, as important as making sure it's rolled out in a rectangle, it's also important to make sure your butter is as even as you can get it. So if you see any bald spots, try to fill it up. If you see any too thick spots, try to thin it out. So I've got it spread evenly over 2/3. Now I'm gonna fold this into itself. I'm gonna brush off this excess flour because I don't need it and I don't want it. And I'm gonna come on with this side here. Now, this doesn't count as a roll. This is just me folding in the butter. My first time rolling, so between the time I made my dough pack and doing this, I was able to be lazy with counting. It should be 20 minutes. Honestly, it was more like an hour that I rested it for. But from now on, I don't want it to rest more than 20 minutes in between roll-ins. So this doesn't count as a roll-in. I'm gonna put this in the fridge on a tray, and I'll leave it in there for 20 minutes. I'll come back and I'll roll it. I'll do that consistently until I have 3 to 4 roll-ins. 3 is the norm, this doesn't count, but right now I've got 1, 2, 3 layers. When I roll it again, I'm gonna have 3, 6, 9. When I roll it again, I'm gonna have 19, 18, 36. When I roll it again, I'm gonna have 36, 72, 108. And then if I roll it another time, I'm gonna have 108, 216, and 324 actual layers of dough in between. So it's really nerdy to do the math, but it's really cool to actually think how many layers you're creating by rolling this in. It's time to do my first official lamination roll. So this has, in the fridge, it's a little firmer, but it's not rock hard. I don't have hard butter, that would be quite hard to roll. Put a little bit on top. All right, and again, I want to roll this in 2 directions. I'm going to roll it a bit in this way, and then I'll turn it and roll it in the other direction. There we go, this looks perfect. Roll number 1. So fold it into itself one way, brush off all the excess, just like last time. A pastry brush works wonders if you don't have a baker's bench brush like I do at work. I have pastry brushes at home. Okay, fold this over top of itself so it's nice and even. And I'm gonna put this back in the fridge. I'm gonna put it in for another 20 minutes and then I'll roll it the exact same way again. All right guys, it's time for our second roll-in. So we're gonna need flour at the bottom, bring our rested Danish dough over here. And again, we're gonna continue on in this rectangle shape. These cracks on the end here are not stressing me out. And the reason is I'm just about to fold them into the center of my dough. So I'll never see them again, they're never gonna bug me. So let's brush this off. And I'm gonna time this for another 20 before I do my third roll-in. This is out of the fridge. This is roll number 3. I'm rolling in both directions. So when it shrinks all together and not just in one direction. Now, I'm going to leave this until tomorrow morning. Then tomorrow I'm gonna put some butter and brown sugar and cinnamon. And I'll roll them up like cinnamon rolls, and this is my Danish. Hey guys, it is day 2. I did all of my turns for my Danish dough, and now I'm just gonna roll it out and I'm gonna turn it into cinnamon buns. So just like yesterday, I'm gonna be rolling it in all directions. And my goal is to get as thin as I got yesterday before I folded it. That's what I would like. All right, so I've got this rolled out thin and even. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to brush on some mostly melted butter. It can be completely melted, it could just be soft, either is fine. I kind of go for the middle and just get it mostly melted. All right. And for the cinnamon sugar, I like to use brown sugar and a nice hefty amount of cinnamon. I like it really, really cinnamony. So I'm gonna spread it except for an inch on the end. I want that inch on the end to work as glue to keep it together. Spread it around gently, make sure it's even. Okay, now I'm gonna start rolling it into itself. I don't want to make the rolls too tight. I do want to give a little bit of movement when it starts to rise. Would be nice. All the way to the end. And one thing I like to do when I cut it is I like to make sure I have a little bit of a serrated knife. That helps get through the layers without mashing the layers. And I'm gonna go about 2 inches thick. So if I'm unsure if I can keep it the same the whole time, I would just do a little dock, every 2 inches or so, and then a little scoopy. And then, you know, I can get mad at myself now rather than get mad at myself later. And last thing I like to do, because I've cut them a little thick on purpose, is I like to just press them down a little bit. So because this is a Danish dough and not a traditional bread dough, I'm going to give them a long time to proof. So I really just want them to be double. So I'm gonna get them on my pan, I'm gonna spray them with some water so that they can actually expand a little bit. Normally I put my bread in a low oven, so my oven goes as low as 140, so I'll heat it up to 140 and that's what I'll put it in as my final proof. That's way too hot for all of the layers of butter we've got in this Danish. So I might do that, but then turn it off and prop it open. So it's still a warm area, but it's not a continual heat that will probably affect it. So I will show you before I throw these in the oven. All right, these are now doubled in size. I'm just gonna brush them with butter and get them in a very hot oven. So I'm gonna use a 375-degree convection oven. So if you are using a regular oven, I would start at 375 and see if it works for you, but I wouldn't be surprised if you needed something closer to a 400-degree oven. So hot, and then yeah, let's see how these go. Hey guys, these just came out of the oven. They need some time to settle and rest before I'm able to destroy them because they look really good. What I was going for with these buns was something similar to the Starbucks morning bun, where it is a puff dough, so a laminated dough of some sort, into a cinnamon bun. It's actually quite common with Danishes. I just don't think we eat a lot of Danish in this part of the world. But if you really look carefully, you can see all sorts of layers throughout. Like, it is a nice laminated dough turned into a cinnamon bun. I really hope you guys make these yourselves and enjoy them as much as I will. I cannot wait to destroy these. Thank you so much.